So you finally did the responsible thing. You opened a high-yield savings account. You moved your money out of that big bank, earning you basically nothing. You found an account paying 4, maybe 5%, and you felt good about yourself. You checked your balance every morning, watched those little interest deposits hit, and thought, okay, I'm finally winning with money. And look, I get it. I've been there. But here's the thing. What if I told you that your high-yield savings account, the one the entire internet has been telling you to open, is actually costing you money right now? Not saving you money, costing you money. And not by a little, by a lot. Stick around, because the math on this is going to genuinely frustrate you. My name is Luis, and I spend way too much time thinking about savings rates, inflation, and where your money should actually be sitting in 2026. If you're someone who finally got serious about your finances, opened that high-yield savings account, but still feel like you're not getting ahead, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Let me be super clear before we get into this. I am not saying high-yield savings accounts are scams. They're not. They are a real, legitimate financial tool. What I am saying is that most of you are using them wrong. You're keeping way too much money in them for way too long, for the wrong reasons. And that quiet, comfortable feeling they give you, that's actually the most dangerous part. Let me explain. Let's start with the math, because the math is where this whole thing falls apart. Right now, the average high-yield savings account is paying somewhere around 4 to 4.5% APY. Sounds great, right? Let's say you've got $10,000 sitting in one of these accounts. At 4.5%, over 1 year, you earn roughly $450 in interest. You see that number. It feels like progress. Feels like your money is working for you. But here's what most people don't realize. Inflation right now, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, is hovering around 3%. Some months it's higher. So let's do the real math. You earned $450 in interest, but inflation ate roughly $300 of your purchasing power on that same $10,000. The one that actually matters is about $150 on $10,000 over an entire year. That's $150 of actual progress. That's about $12 a month. You're not building wealth. You're barely treading water. And look, treading water is better than drowning. I'll give you that. If your money was sitting in a traditional savings account, earning 0.01%, yeah, the high-yield account is a massive upgrade. But here's where I need you to shift your thinking. Beating 0.01% is not the bar. That is the lowest bar imaginable. That's like saying, well, at least I showed up to the exam. You didn't pass. You just showed up. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because the math alone isn't even the biggest problem. The psychology is. There's a concept in behavioral economics called satisficing. It basically means that once we find a solution that feels good enough, we stop looking for something better. And that's exactly what high-yield savings accounts do to people. You make one smart move, you open the account, you transfer the money, and your brain goes, done. I'm good. I'm a financially responsible person now. And then you stop. You stop researching. You stop optimizing. You stop asking, is there something better I could be doing with this money? The high-yield savings account becomes this financial comfort zone. And comfort zones? They don't build wealth. They protect the status quo. A Federal Reserve survey found that over 50% of Americans with savings have the majority of it in cash or cash equivalents, not invested, just sitting there. Little interest, sure, but fundamentally, parked. And I think the reason is emotional, not logical. Cash in a savings account feels safe. You can see the number. It doesn't go down. There are no red days. There's no volatility. And after years of hearing scary headlines about market crashes and recessions, that sense of safety becomes almost addictive. But here's the thing. Safety and progress are not the same thing. A life raft is safe. It keeps you alive, but it doesn't get you anywhere.
Now, you might be thinking, Luis, okay, but I need liquidity. I need to be able to access my money. And you're right. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to throw your emergency fund into crypto or put your rent money into index funds. That would be insane. But let me ask you an honest question. How much do you actually need in liquid savings? Most financial experts recommend 3 to 6 months of essential expenses as an emergency fund. Let's say your monthly expenses are $3,000. That means you need $9,000 to $18,000 readily accessible. Cool. Keep that in your high-yield savings account. That's what it's for. That is the correct use case. But here's where most people mess up. They have $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 sitting in a high-yield savings account, not because they need that much liquidity, but because they're afraid to do anything else with it. And that excess money, the money above and beyond your emergency fund, that money is bleeding opportunity cost every single day. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you have $40,000 in a high-yield savings account. You need $15,000 for emergencies. That means $25,000 is just sitting there, underperforming. If you moved that $25,000 into a broad market index fund, something like an S&P 500 fund, and earned the historical average of around 10% annually, in 10 years, that $25,000 becomes roughly $65,000. Leave it in the high-yield savings account at 4.5%. After 10 years, it's about $39,000. And remember, that 4.5% rate isn't guaranteed. When the Fed cuts rates, your savings rate drops too. The difference is roughly $26,000 over 10 years on just $25,000. That's what doing nothing costs. That's the price of comfort. And look, I have to bring this up because it's happening right now. Interest rates are not staying where they are. The Federal Reserve has already signaled continued rate adjustments. And every time the Fed lowers its benchmark rate, your high-yield savings account rate follows it down. We've already seen rates drop from their peaks. Some accounts that were advertising 5% or more are now sitting in the low 4s, somewhere in the 3s. Here's what most people don't realize. The era of good savings rates is not permanent. It's a window. And that window is closing. The people who treat their high-yield savings account like a long-term wealth strategy are going to wake up one day seeing 2.5% on their dashboard and realize they wasted the last several years parked on the sideline. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 doesn't care what the Fed does on any given Tuesday. Over any 20-year rolling period in the history of the market, it has never produced a negative return. Not once. Through world wars, through recessions, through pandemics, the long-term trajectory is up. Always. So let me give you the actual framework, because I don't want to just tell you there's a problem. I want to help you fix it. Step 1. Calculate your real emergency fund need. Take your essential monthly expenses, rent or mortgage, food, transportation, insurance, utilities, and multiply by 4 to 6 months. That number stays in your high-yield savings account. That is sacred money. Don't touch it. Don't invest it. Step 2. Everything above that number gets a job. And I don't mean you go pick individual stocks or start day trading. I mean you open a brokerage account, Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, wherever, and you start putting that excess cash into low-cost, diversified index funds. An S&P 500 fund, total stock market fund. If you want a little more diversification, consider a target date fund that automatically adjusts as you age. This isn't complicated. It's not sexy. It's boring. And boring is how regular people actually build wealth. Step 3. Automate everything. Set up an automatic transfer so that every month, any cash above your emergency fund threshold gets moved into your investment account. You don't think about it. You don't debate it. You don't wait for the right time. The right time is consistently. The right time is automatic. step 4, and this one is psychological. Stop checking your savings balance every day. Seriously, that daily dopamine hit of watching your interest accumulate is part of what keeps you anchored to the account. It feels productive. It feels like growth, but real growth happens on a longer time scale. In accounts you check maybe once a quarter.
Let me tell you a quick story. I talked to someone a while back who had over $100,000 in a high-yield savings account. They were proud of it. And honestly, they should have been proud of saving that much. That's incredible discipline. But when we ran the numbers together, we realized that if they had kept just 6 months of expenses liquid and invested the rest over the previous 5 years, they would have had roughly $40,000 to $50,000 more. Not from working more hours, not from getting a raise, just from putting their existing money in a better spot.
And that's the part that gets me a little frustrated, honestly, because the financial media, and yeah, even some YouTubers, spent the last 2 years telling everyone to maximize their high-yield savings account like it was the ultimate financial move. And for your emergency fund? Yes, absolutely. But they left out the second part of the conversation. They never said, and once your emergency fund is set, stop hoarding cash and start investing. They just let people pile money into savings and feel smart about it. You deserve better advice than that.
So let me leave you with this. A high-yield savings account is a tool, a very specific tool for a very specific job. Protecting your emergency fund and short-term cash. That's it. It is not a wealth-building strategy. It is not an investment. And if you are keeping tens of thousands of dollars beyond your emergency fund in one place, you are paying an invisible tax called opportunity cost every single day. The move is simple. Protect what you need, invest what you don't, automate the process, and stop letting the comfort of a savings balance trick you into thinking you're making progress when you're really just standing still. If this video helped you see your money differently, hit the subscribe button. I put out videos like this every single week, breaking down the stuff that actually moves the needle on your finances. Drop a comment below and tell me, how much are you keeping in your high-yield savings account right now? Be honest. Let's talk about it. And I'll see you in the next one.